Okay, we're back, and I just turned this thing upside down. I was looking at it thinking, what could we do with this? So we're going to see if we can just learn another technique here, and we're going to try to do a wet on dry on this side, and then a wet on that side, and just see the difference how this goes. Okay, so let's just have some fun. The brush is already here. I'm just using the same paint. It's still moist. The same paint right here. Now I'm going to move around so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to draw a line all the way through right here, and then all the way, let's just take it up a little bit, and let's go up here. This is going to move on me a little bit. I probably ought to redo this, but let's just try to set something on the corner of it. You can use masking tape to hold that down if you want. So here we go. We're going to paint this and just paint down there, kind of paint the outlines of it, but and we're just going to fill in the inside of this. I don't want any of these lines really to dry, so I'm just going to painting this pretty quickly. Actually, is what you want to get, and be able to get the right look. Now again, I don't want the paper too wet. It is buckling a little where you see puddles and such, but I'm not going to play around with it too much. It's watercolor, so you can have fun with it. So that's the wet on wet, or wet on dry, just doing that method. Okay, let's try this now. Over on this side, this is already dried, so I'm going to do this right here. I'm just painting with water, painting with slightly blue water, but painting with water nonetheless. And let's just see what happens. I didn't paint all of it, but let's just see what we can do here. If I paint back here, the color bleeds to the line. So I'm just tapping in the color here next to the line, and it will bleed all the way to the line. And you see in this method, it stopped right there where we have it. Now I've got a lot of water on here, so I'm just going to use this. I'm going to paint the rest of this as it is, and just spread this all around. Got a large clump of paint here. I can pick it up there, and I can put it over there. I can dry my paintbrush off since I've got so much water. I've got a lot of puddling. Not what I'm looking for there. Okay, so right now I'm just soaking up. I'm not really messing around with the paint itself. I'm just trying to soak up some of this excess water because I put a lot on there, probably too much. And you can see a little bit of a difference in what we're ending up with there. So let me dry off my paintbrush. I get it fairly dry. I'm going to go into one of my dark parts of my paint right here. And I'm just going to dry brush this across. Now I don't want to touch where it's already wet. That touched a little bit right there. Again, I don't really want much water on this part here at all. What I'm going to try to do is just draw across here. I'm going to leave some empty spots. This is not a composition by any means, but just showing different techniques. And as the brush gets drier, you can see what's happening over here. It's kind of covering some parts of the paper and not others. It leaves little voids here and there, and now some of the glob of my paint is showing up, but maybe I like those. Like Bob Ross said, those happy little accidents. Yeah. So we can just have fun with this and do quite a bit. Now the perspective's off if I wanted that, but I did achieve 3 different techniques. I've got maybe 4. I've got the
gradients right here, and all I did is I start with my darkest paint and I keep adding water as I go, and this is done on the wet on wet technique right here, so I can just keep adding water as I go. This one over here was a wet on dry, so I just got my paint and I just painted it exactly how I wanted it to go. Over here I painted the wet, just water from my jar on here first, and then I used the paint by dabbing it in or painting it in, and it bled up to the line, but notice it didn't go over the line where I had it. Now I've got a little puddle here. I think I can just grab some of that and pull some of that excess paint out carefully, the excess water, otherwise we'll end up with a big dark spot. But I'm not going to play around with it too much. I'm just going to pull some of these. That's the advantage if we were to stretch our paper. And then on top, all I did is as dry a brush as I could get. So I dried it off over here as much as possible. And then I came in here and just grabbed some from the dry side. I've got kind of a wet side over here in the lighter color. And then from the dry side, I just grabbed paint here, and it got more of that dry brush look. Let me see if we can zoom in and see that a little bit better. And try to zoom in and see some of that. Up here on the top, especially as the brush dried out, you can see definitely a different texture happening right there. That's just fun right there. You see how the light's reflecting off of this part over here. This is still very wet. And so we'll let this dry. And, oh, by the way, our other one is fairly dry. That has the 10 different shades on it. Let me back off our zoom. There we are. And that's what it looked like. And these little extra pieces, my son, my daughter wanted to paint, so I let them throw some paint on there for fun. So this is really dark. It's still wet, so you can see the glimmer. Then still pretty wet. And then this dried out pretty well, and it gets lighter and lighter, lighter and lighter. Even this lightest one over here, you can still see a little bit of blue. So you can see just with one color what the possibilities are, and you could probably get a lot of gradation variance between here and other ones, I'm sure. Just make sure while it's wet that they don't touch each other. Otherwise, one will bleed into the other like these did, and it won't allow you to get that color difference very much. Not quite as much as you want. Okay, that'll be all for this section.